Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. This is the Facts on JW channel. I'm Casey, your host, and today I have an update I'd like to share with you about what's going on in Europe in the great country of Sweden. So let's get into it. In October of this year, 2025, Sweden made international headlines after announcing that Jehovah's Witnesses would be denied state funding. This decision sparked a global debate about religion, democracy, and human rights. Yep, you heard that right. Human rights. Do you think Jehovah's Witnesses organization, which I will refer to as Watchtower from now on, respects human rights? No, because they do shunnings, right? When the values of a faith community collide with democratic norms, how does a government respond? Okay, so to understand what's happening, we need to look at three things. Number one, the legal system that governs faith funding in Sweden. Number two, why Jehovah's Witnesses, or Watchtower, were denied. And number three, what this means for religious freedom in Europe. Sweden provides public funding to registered religious communities. But to qualify, a group must show not only that it has members and services, it must also respect democratic values and, you heard it, human rights. Do you think Watchtower respects human rights if they shun their members, former members? No, absolutely not. So, Sweden says that includes equality between men and women, freedom of choice in relationships, and non-discrimination against those who leave. Doesn't sound like something Watchtower follows to me. Some human rights groups say this system has been quietly reshaped to exclude Jehovah's Witnesses or Watchtower. Okay, that's what some are saying. But then, one watchdog even reported that Sweden officials admitted they changed the rules specifically to prevent witnesses from receiving state aid. I'm not so sure about that. Well, in March 2025, Jehovah's Witnesses applied for government funding through the Swedish Authority for Support to Faith Communities, known as SST. Officials reviewed the organization's documents, bylaws, and reports, and asked direct questions about how the group treats former members and those in same-sex or unmarried partnerships. On October 24th, the SST released its verdict. Watchtower met the formal criteria. They're organized and large enough, but the authority concluded they failed the democratic and non-discrimination tests. Of course they did. They don't respect human rights, and they ostracize. The report cited social ostracism of former members, as we know, and exclusion based on partner choices as their reason for denial. That means Watchtower will not receive state subsidies in Sweden. They can appeal this, but for now the decision currently stands, and we will see in the future what may happen. The fallout has been swift. Human rights organizations called the decision state discrimination. They warn that conditioning aid on a group's internal beliefs blurs the line between church and state. Supporters of Sweden's move see it differently. They argue public money should never support practices that violate equality and human rights. Meanwhile, former members of Jehovah's Witnesses, of course we know, called exjws, welcomed the move online, calling it a long overdue stand against shunning and control. And if you read the comments in Reddit, you will see that many of the former exjws or former Jehovah's Witnesses are very happy with the current situation in Sweden. But for Watchtower, the loss of funding could impact operations across their Swedish congregations. And this could cost them some money because they were needing this aid and they are not going to receive it for now. They can appeal it, of course. And you know how that goes. It's back and forth. It could take a very long time. But for other religious groups, the case sends a clear signal. State aid is no longer automatic. A group's internal culture can now determine whether it qualifies for public support. Watchtower is expected to appeal to the administrative court in Stockholm. Legal experts say this could become a landmark case defining how far governments can go in enforcing democratic values within faith organizations. The Swedish Authority itself admitted that the current law may not be perfect and more reform could follow. But for Sweden, the decision represents a balancing act between freedom of religion and protection from coercive practices. I agree. We don't need coercive practices. We don't need shunning and ostracism. But there must be a balance, right, between church and state. But in the end, it's simple. You want our money? Follow our rules. That's basically what Sweden is saying. For Watchtower, it raises difficult questions about their treatment of members and former members, and how such policies fit within modern European values. In one Scandinavian country, a global religion has been told, you may worship freely, but if you want public funding, you must align with a democracy and equality. Whether this is a defense of human rights or government overreach depends on where you stand. Again, it's simple. You want our money? Abide by the rules. And don't ostracize former members. I don't think it's that hard. So we'll see what Watchtower ends up deciding. Are they going to continue with their ostracism and their shunning policies? If they want the money, maybe they'll change. We'll see. Okay, everyone, I wanted to share with you the information I actually have, just so you know I'm not making this up. Here is a document that states, this is from the SST, the Authority for Support to Religious Communities. And they state right here, the Authority for Support to Religious Communities rejects the Jehovah's Witnesses application to become eligible for state subsidies under the Act 2024-487 on state subsidies to religious communities. And they go on to mention the reasons why. Here are some questions. Back in May of 2025, they asked the following 8 questions. Number 1, does a member risk being expelled from a religious community if they choose a life partner who, for example, does not belong to Jehovah's Witnesses, belongs to another religion, or is of the same gender? Is it true that you cannot become a member of Jehovah's Witnesses if you are homosexual? Do you urge family members to stop associating with a person who has been expelled from or left the religious community? Is the congregation encouraged to treat the family of an excluded or departed person differently from how it is encouraged to treat families where no one has been excluded or departed from the congregation? How are congregations urged to relate to the family of an excluded or departed person? Does your community sanction any form of corporal punishment? Of course, we know the answer to that one. How does the religious community act if it is aware that members practice corporal punishment in their upbringing? What are the instructions to congregations regarding how to handle situations where information about CSA happens by members? So, as we know, pretty much they don't follow any of these. They expel their members for disobeying the rules. If you decide to leave, disassociate, you are shunned. If you're disfellowshipped, you are shunned. If you're deemed an apostate, you're shunned. They pretty much do not handle CSA problems correctly. We all know. They are terrible with this. They protect the pedos more than they protect the ones who are being abused. in this case, Sweden says, you want our money? I don't think so, because you aren't following these rules and you are not being fair to the people who have left, or you are mistreating the ones who are victims sometimes in the CSA cases. In the end, it states here that Jehovah's Witnesses were upset about this. They were like, oh, well, in that case, they wanted to talk to somebody else. So in July of 2025, Jehovah's Witnesses, or Watchtower, submitted a request to the government that the examination of the application be transferred to another authority. They didn't like the answer that SST was giving them. So this request stated that the letter should be considered a response to the SST's request for additional information. The grounds for the request were that the SST and its representatives were biased. Right. So that's what happened. They asked, no, we want to speak to somebody else. You are not being fair. The government in August decided not to take any action on their request to appoint another authority. Again, the SST urged Jehovah's Witnesses to answer the questions that they had been given them. In September, Watchtower announced that the community intended to seek judicial review of the government's decision, and that the SST was not competent to examine the application. As grounds for this position, Watchtower referred to the reasons previously stated, what they were basically saying that they were being biased, they were being discriminated against. So it's just kind of this back and forth nonsense. And then in the end, SST stood its ground, said, I'm sorry, if you can't comply with these rules, then you can't get our money. Now, currently, as it states here below, an appeal can be made if they don't agree. So Watchtower is probably going to appeal because they love doing that. The appeal must be in writing and must be received by SOT within 3 weeks of the date on which you were notified of the decision. Okay, so they can appeal this. We will see what happens. So that's the latest that we have on Sweden. We will see what happens with JWs and if they're going to appeal it or not. Also, coming up next year in February 2026, Jehovah's Witnesses versus Norway. There will be a trial that will be live streamed, and avoidjw.org is going to attempt to have it translated and live streamed on their home page, so stay tuned for that next year. It has been confirmed by Rizwana Yedekam, the information advisor for the Communications Department of the Supreme Court of Norway, that the upcoming trial between Watchtower and Norwegian State will be live streamed for the public to watch day by day. So this is great news. We will see what's going to happen in the upcoming months, and hopefully this means that the final decision will be a landmark ruling. So once it issues a ruling, the decision is final and binding. There's no higher Norwegian court to appeal to. So if Jehovah's Witnesses lose in the Supreme Court, they cannot appeal within Norway again. They will no longer have the same legal recognition as any other religions. They will lose public funding and be publicly marked as a group that the Norwegian government deems harmful. So this is one of the first major European cases of a government denying freedom of religion due to its harmful internal practices. This is great. So we will see what happens with Norway and the Supreme Court. The authorities argue that Jehovah's Witnesses' practices of pressuring people and violating the right to freedom and belief by not being able to freely leave without losing their friends and family and harming children emotionally conflict with Norway's children's rights laws and the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child. The religion was denied state financial grants, so Watchtower was denied this because of this, and it's been a battle between them since. So we will see what happens in the near future. So stay tuned for that, which is good news, and we will see. So thank you all so much for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe. Stay tuned for more great videos that we have coming up. And if you'd like to join as a member, you can do so, and you will get early release to the videos that we have. And also, if you could, make sure you tap that bell notification for any updates that we have. And tell me in the comments below, should governments decide which religions qualify for funding? Is Sweden protecting democracy or crossing a line? So, let me know in the comments below, and I will see you on the next episode. Stay tuned for more, and remember to always use your critical thinking skills.